Partners. My name is Torrance White. I'm the SWMB Contracting Coordinator with Alamo Colleges. And I just want to say, if you are interested in doing business with Alamo Colleges, whether you're SWMB certified or non-certified, whether you're a startup or in the more established stage, please do look us up at alamo.edu/purchasing for upcoming bidding opportunities, as well as to find out how to register to do business with Alamo Colleges. And I'm also joined today by my colleague, Karen Godfrey, with the Purchasing Contract Administration Department. Karen, do you have anything to add, or you want to say hello to anyone?
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. This is my first time actually joining this webinar, so I'm excited to see what it's all about too. So we look forward to doing business with y'all in the future.
Thank you, Karen. Appreciate that. Well, we're going to go and get some things started, and to kick things off, I'm going to turn it over to Monique Joseph.
Right. All right. Well, good morning, everyone. First and foremost, I'd like to say thank you for joining us on today. You could be doing a million other things at work today, but you are taking the time out to join us to hear our webinar, and we appreciate that. A couple of things that I want to remind you of is, if you are on the Zoom, if you do not mind muting your device, just so that we can get through the presentation, and when there's a Q&A, then you can feel free to unmute and ask your questions at that time. The second thing is that there's going to be a comment section or a comment box. In the event that you have questions throughout the presentation, please feel free to leave your questions in the comment box, where we have a member of our staff monitoring that box throughout the presentation, and they will be answering questions as we go forward. Okay. Here are our presenters today. Myself, Monique Joseph, and I am a contract manager here at Choice Partners, where later on in the presentation, I'll be discussing our eBid portion, which is our electronic bidding system. Next, we have Joanne Nichols, our assistant director here at Choice Partners, who is monitoring our chat function. So she will be the one behind the scenes answering all of your questions that you leave there. Then you have Kendrick, our senior manager of facilities planning. I call him the Jock guru, just because he's going to be providing all and any information that you may need in your Jock presentation here later. You have Steve Gibson, who is another contract manager here at Choice Partners, that will be discussing the legal portion of Choice Partners. And last but not least, you have Janet Walsh, who is the client engagement assistant director, who will be discussing all things marketing. Here's the agenda for today. So there's two parts. So the first part, from 10 to 10:15, is the welcome and introduction of Choice Partners. From 10:15 to 10:30, we'll be discussing our legal requirements. From 10:30 to 10:45, we'll be talking about growing your business. From 10:45 to 11 a.m., you'll have your eBid introduction. Then part two is conducive of 11 to 12, our job order contracting. From 12 to 12:15, you'll have your Q&A session. And then from 12:15 to 12:30, we will have closing remarks. Again, I want to introduce myself. My name is Monique Joseph, and I'm a contract manager here at Choice Partners, and I majority handle a lot of the job contracts here at Choice. Our contracts are a lot broader than just Hcde, but our members, which are school districts, charter schools, municipalities, colleges, and universities, are who we create these contracts for, so that they can utilize them to do business with our vendors. And we're going to discuss how we all win in these situations. Let us help you, help us, help them. Here's what I call the trifecta. So you have three entities labeled here: Choice Partners, the CP awarded vendor, and the CP member. And how do we all win? Well, Choice Partners creates the solicitations, and we invite several vendors to apply for those solicitations. Then they go through the RFP process. And once those vendors are selected for award, they go to our board, and our board decides who is awarded those contracts. Then they become a CP awarded vendor. Then the contract is able to be utilized for the CP awarded vendor to our members for them to do business. So you're winning because now you have a new customer base that you probably didn't have access to already. Our CP member, which is our government entities, are winning because they can skip the process of doing the solicitation themselves. So it saves them time and money by utilizing our cooperative contracts to do business with you all. So they're winning by saving that time and money. They're able to use those contracts by signing what's called an interlocal agreement, which is a document that allows them to do business with another government entity, which is Choice Partners, to do business. And then lastly, Choice Partners is going to win also because we collect a small admin fee tied to each contract that allows us to be paid a fee for doing business. So we're all winning there in those situations. Next, we're going to talk about Hcde, better known as the Harris County Department of Education. We are a government entity. We're located in Harris County, Texas, and we are not a county agency. Hcde is a governmental agency serving the Harris County schools since 1889, and we are also a taxing authority. There are 5 different pillars that we support. These pillars are adult education, Case for Kids, Head Start, special schools, and therapy services. So the admin fee that I was just discussing on the previous slide that we collect from all of our contracts, at the end of the year, we recycle those funds into these programs so they can continue to be utilized by the individuals in our communities. Now I'm going to turn the presentation over to Stephen Gibson, who's going to discuss our legal requirements.
Okay, hey, good morning, everybody. I really hope everybody's doing well. My name is Steve Gibson. I've been a contract manager here at Choice Partners since February 2020. I worked in public and private sector procurement for about 20 years. And I'm really passionate about Choice Partners. I was a customer before I joined as a contract manager. And I thought they offered me in purchasing tremendous value because of all the time savings that we achieved. One of the biggest headaches, and believe me, it's on both sides. It's, you know, when you're a contractor, you've got legal stuff. When you're in government, you've got legal stuff, and we're all trying to work together. So I hope what I have to share with you today is valuable, can help you gain business, can save you some time, some frustration, and also can save your customers some time and some frustration. So what I'll talk about is the legal and contracts. So you really don't need a parachute to go skydiving. You just need that parachute if you want to go skydiving twice. Just kind of keep that in mind. It's not always necessary to know everything about the legal side of it, but some of these things, just if you have that awareness, it can add a lot of value to your government clients. So, you know, this is just something I think will help you. And to just kind of kick us off, let's just kind of imagine building a layer cake. Think about a cake, right? You're building a 4-layer cake. Each level is going to represent an order of benefit. You know, so what do you do first? Okay, your first job, help the customer. That's your basic layer. Next, help the customer get what they want. Help the customer get what they want from you. You know, tell us why you're the best person to do that. And help them do so in a way that is legally and compliant. So this would be kind of, think of this as an example to leverage your contract without changing the way that you normally do. You know, it shouldn't change too much from your normal sales process. It's just an additional level of benefit for your customers. Oops, I need to go back one slide. Okay, so Choice Partners, you know, provides legally procured contracts. Okay, what does that mean? Why is that important? I mean, it's important because it relates to the needs of your customers. And I really just want to keep all this simple. So, you know, in a typical, when you do business with somebody, usually save all those terms and conditions for the end of it. When you're working with a co-op, you put all that stuff out front. In fact, the co-op does most of that work for you. The Choice Partners contract has to be developed so it protects a lot of different entities and different types of government entities. All these different entities have to follow different laws. And our contract has to measure up to the strictest of all those provisions. So it makes everybody happy. we have very, very good contracts. In fact, they will adhere to the strictest provision of all the government laws that we're doing here. So that puts it in front of it, so that once you've been awarded that contract, you can do business. You don't have to revisit those things later. And if you're in procurement, like I was for many years, I appreciated that because I didn't have to negotiate those things. After I found what I wanted, and I know it's exactly what we needed, I don't have to come back to it. Oh, we can't make this deal because we can't agree on this term or that term. So the legal side of it, basically, to all this mumbo jumbo, just keep it real simple. We just put that in front of the process so that you and your government clients don't have to deal with that later. So why is it important? Well, it's important because it relates to your customers' needs. Some other considerations: it reduces the risk and time for sale. It helps you get repeat business. If you make that government entity happy, they're not going to want to reprocure the same thing. They'll be delighted to ship it to you again. Satisfies a requirement for procurement process. Okay, so what does that mean? What is that? Why is that a requirement? It's a requirement in Texas, in just about any other state that I know about, that there be a procurement process. Well, what is that? Well, choice partners is a procurement process. An RFP is a procurement process. An RFP is a procurement process. So they can either do all that work of creating the RFP themselves, or they can have the co-op do it once, and then multiple entities can join that contract. Multiple vendors can join that contract with those entities. It's a way of eliminating a lot of work. And incidentally, difference between RFP and RFP, if you're not familiar with it, what's an RFP? RFP is, okay, I know exactly what I want. Tell me how much you're going to charge to provide it. RFP is, maybe there's multiple ways to skin this cat. Tell me how you think you would provide it. Give me your best price for that, and let's talk and see if we can figure out a way to form a contract together. One award can be served by multiple government entities and can be used by multiple vendors. For y'all, there's less bids and RFPs to respond to. With a relationship, you propose on needs that are never ever bid out. You get those jobs just because you make it easy. Being on the choice partners contract means that that government entity is not really required to go outside of that. They can work with you directly. We're referencing a contract that exists. We're not creating a new. It's an easy contract, and not to exceed pricing will apply to all members. There's a pre-qualification factor as well. A lot of our ISDs, a lot of our colleges, they just don't have time to write a detailed formal procurement for all their needs. Being a co-op, being on choice partners means that you have qualified against some very good competition for some very good contracts. Once you are there, it's a step up. It's something that you can advertise. Definitely something that you want to let your government contractors know about. Here's some reasons why your government customers are using cooperative purchasing. It reduces the number of bids to prepare, to issue, and to monitor. It's appropriate for many needs, but not all. Labor in preparing bids and RFPs can be used elsewhere. Governments can prioritize the more complicated and detailed and expensive procurements. They may choose to do those internally. And maybe some of their commodities, they might choose to use a co-op because it's just not worth it to do all that work when the co-op's already done it. It takes 90 days in average time from an RFP, from development to award. It takes 45 to 60 for a bid. Flexibility and convenience to work with the vendors on established pricing and better discount. This is where repeat business comes in. Once you've established a great relationship with that vendor, honestly, they just want to use you again. Their people are not going to want to bid that out if they don't have to. And then cooperative purchasing, another reason why your government customers are using it. It's because it's been authorized in many laws and becoming more and more popular in Texas every year. On contracts, just kind of remember Choice Partners complies with the most restrictive rule, whether that's the Edgar, FASR Act, or state or federal purchasing laws. And also maybe put yourself in the shoes of your government customer. You know, what are they afraid of? Well, you know, they're afraid of breaking the law and getting in trouble. This is one way you can relieve that burden from them. And you know, basically remember, if you take care of your government customers' basic needs and their worst fears, they will rely on you again and again and again. So we offer contracts to our members in the following areas: food, cafeteria, technology, commodities, services, and facilities, including construction. You know, our goal is this: we want to award just the best value contracts. So our members can rest assured if the member chooses to use one of these contracts, they are getting a very good quality company that provides quality products and services at the best possible value. We also have a supply catalog, which is unique to Choice Partners, that will provide more than 1,100 commodities on a low bid basis. So if your business is one where you are very good at what you do, you're very efficient at what you do, and you can provide these commodities at lowest cost, this is something you can look into. It's a very easy thing to do. And it actually works a lot like Amazon, where your government customers will go on a website and pick and choose, and then they'll send you a quote, you respond. It's very easy to use, and we do a lot of business with that. It's completely unique to Choice Partners there. And I guess I will close the legal and contract side with with this, but feel free to add any questions you might have on the chat. When you are competing for an award for Choice Partners, make sure you put that in the hands of somebody who's very detailed. Make sure you remember, you might just want to work with your local college district. That might be your goal. I want to do business with Alamo College District. Okay, but keep in mind, if you're trying to do so by a co-op, what you propose has to be good for everybody. Sorry, I've lost control of my remote. Let me request it back so I can get to my next screen here. There it is. That was the next screen. Just be careful what you propose. So you may be selling to the Alamo College District, but what happens if you end up getting this somebody from Alaska who wants to use this contract? So anyway, just think these through, make sure that person is a very detail-oriented person, and you structure your contracts and your proposals so it can be used by other people. That's all I have. I really appreciate y'all's time. If you have any questions, please do put in the chat. And other than that, just have a wonderful Wednesday. Janet, you need to.
I know, I'm trying. It didn't have the button. I'm aware. So, and I'm trying to move it forward. It takes very slow time. There we go. I was waiting on technology for both of them. And good morning, everyone. And I'm hoping y'all are safe. I understand y'all got the rain before we did, but we're doing okay now. So I am Janet Walks. I've been with Choice Partners since 2013, and I've been helping them with their marketing for, I guess, since 2015 and moving forward. So I've been both a vendor and I'm now with the co-op. So I've been on both sides. I've been where you're at, and I understand how marketing is really strategic to being able to use this membership as a member to be able to buy without having to go through my own RFP, as Steve was speaking of. So what we're trying to share today is how you as a vendor get benefits out of being an awarded vendor, an awarded contract holder by us. And so one of the first questions you might ask is like, where would I begin? What do I do? What would be my first target? And that would be your current customers. You always start with what you know is a known quantity. So if you've already been working with any governmental entity or nonprofit, you have that opportunity to tell them, I have been recently awarded a contract now through a co-op, and this will keep you from having to do your own bid if it's not required by their entity. And again, that's all dependent on the customer you're talking to. So if they say, yes, I can go through a co-op, you go, well, now I'm awarded. And if you would like a quote, I can quote it based on the pricing that was set up in my co-op contract, and let me see what your project requires and move forward from there. So you want to ask, well, should I just work with members or non-members? What I'm saying is, where if you start with your current customers, if your current customer just also happens to be one of our existing members, you can say, oh, we're ready to go together right away. But if you come up as a potential customer with somebody who is a governmental entity or nonprofit, then you can say, it costs you nothing to become a member. If you join this co-op, then I can offer you my special pricing that is guaranteed through my contract with them. So that's another way that it helps you grow your business. It's easier for a potential customer to work with you if they go through the co-op instead of running their own RFP. And maybe you don't realize it, or if you've worked with some customers and you've had to wait through that process, it can take 6 to 8 months sometimes by the time they advertise and they collect their responses, they do their review, they do their editing, it's a long, long process. So that's why we as the co-op do it ahead of time with a generic contract, allowing you to give a quote for their specific project. Now, the other way to grow your business is by getting referrals, either from our existing members or from maybe even another vendor would say, hey, have you gone to this company? And they're with the co-op. It works both ways. So you can get referrals. If you have an existing customer who works in purchasing and this entity is already a member, that person in purchasing can say, you need to run over and talk to our transportation department. Or also you can go over and talk to, if their school district, maybe to the curriculum department, or maybe it's just to the business services department if they're the one that buy the supplies that runs the office. We have all of those contracts. So you have all those options to deal with instead of just one solo person at a company. Go out and talk to all the different departments, and it's like one-stop shopping. You can find multiple customers through one avenue. And I had mentioned about collaborating with another choice partner contract holder. If you have a roofing business, but they need to get a scissor lift to get up to the roof to be able to finish the job, you can mention it to your customer. Say, along with me being at Choice Partners, there's another company and they have a contract already, so you can just talk with them directly and don't have to go out to bid for that as well. So this is what we're talking about, collaborating together. It's a great way to grow your business. Okie dokie here. I'm hitting the key and it's not going anywhere. I can't get it to advance. So let me try if I can go backwards. Can't go forwards. Okay, Monique, what I'm going to do, for whatever reason, it's that same technical issue I had before. I'm just going to ask you to move my slides forward and I'll tell you when. So if you'll go to slide 16, please. Thank you. The very first step to become a CP vendor is number one there. That's highlighted in blue. It's exactly the verbiage you'll see if you go to our website under Become a Vendor. and it's a link. And when you click on that link that says register as a supplier, it'll take you to another website that is IronWave. And that's how we take all the information for vendors, and you explain yourself, describe yourself fully, leave a email that is watched regularly, because the second step is to respond to a specific bid or proposal. You don't want to miss the evite that will come for a bid or proposal that is relative to what you say you offer. If you want to offer only product and not service, then describe that when you register. If you want to offer both, describe that as well. And you may end up holding more than one contract with us. Many of our vendors have multiple contracts because they're applicable to the different areas that we cover. And then even if you respond to that RFP, you are still not able to call yourself an awarded vendor until we have done the vetting of all the responses, graded them, and made our proposal to our board, who should be awarded a contract. When the board approves, then that's when the board says, I approve this vendor to have an awarded contract. Then you're number 3, you become an awarded vendor. And that's when you're able to say to any potential customer, we are an awarded vendor with Choice Partners and can work with you. So you would be notified of that. You would definitely know you'll get a contract number. You want to use that contract number on any kind of correspondence between you and a potential customer. You would put it on your quotes. You would put it on, if they give you a PO and they don't have it on there, you tell them this is the number, make sure it's on there. And that's how you're able to qualify it to other people. They can go to your website and they'll be able to see it, your website within ours. So let's go to the next one and I'll show you what happens. When you go to that IronWave system, the eBid system, and you register, you create a login. Now that you're an awarded contract vendor, you come to the vendor login page. It's a difference. You're not registering again. This is a vendor login page. And on the left-hand side, you'll see where it says username and password. You'll have already created that to register, and you use it to respond to the RFP. Then you pop it in here, and the next slide will show you where you'll come to our next slide. Will show you, you come to the vendor dashboard. Excuse me. So these are all the options that we give you as a vendor. And it's a lot to read right now, but if you see on the top at the bottom, there's 5 red buttons. The top row on the right says marketing resources. We'll get into that a little bit, but we do support our vendors as much as we do our members. So you can see top row middle button says view members. This is where you get a list of our current active members, and you can market to that. We can help you market using that list, or you can go out and get other potential customers that need to become a member to use you. So if you want to collaborate with another vendor, top row left-hand button says view vendors. So you can see everybody that's there. And again, you'll still have access to the eBid system as you see in the bottom row in the middle. The next slide, please. This is what we call a vendor landing page. It's your own mini website within Choice Partners website. We chose the company Balfour, and I just wanted you to see if you can see that there's a contract category listed there and the number that will be assigned. These are things that purchasers and governmental entities will need that information when they put through a PO requisition or even the request to buy from you. They're going to want to validate you. So the other thing we added on here were the terms and also our contract manager, so that if a member wants to utilize you, they might contact us before they talk to you, while they're talking to you, or after they've talked to you, to confirm that everything lines up legally and is in compliance, because they get audited regularly, and using our contracts usually keeps them in great compliance so that they always pass audits. Now, the other thing you can see over on the right is contact info. This is your own contact information. 3 is about as many as we can list on the website, but it doesn't list it. The first one should be your main person, and you include the phone number, cell, email, however you want them to reach out to you. Because if somebody is looking on the web and we're a national co-op, you're going to have great exposure. And this is where they're going to come to contact you. You can see that you also get to include your own website. So from this mini website, you launch to your own, and it tells them the area. Not all our vendors are approved to sell nationally. And it's not a matter of us saying you're approved. You have to request what area you want to cover. So within the state of Texas, some vendors say I can only cover maybe the South region, or we can only cover the North. This vendor said, I can cover all of Texas and all of the US. So they get a national award. Next slide, please. Monique, thank you. I know it's a lag. Y'all pardon us. We're having technical slowness here. It's been this way all morning since we had the storm. Now, this is another landing page from another vendor, but you would see all of this together just in a slide. It's hard to show it all at once. What I want you to focus on is over here on the right-hand side, you'll see a button that says due diligence. In that due diligence, any member can go there and hit download, and they will see how we ran the RFP. They'll see the affidavit, the bid tab, the evaluation form, the advertisement, and much more. Now, two things. This information is password protected. Only members that have registered for a login ID are going to be able to see this, okay? So therefore, only vendors with login IDs can see it. So this will, though, open the doors to any questions that a potential customer for you might have. Oh, what about this? And what about, and do they have this? And how do I validate that when I present my purchase order for approval? So this is great. The other thing I like you to see is down where it says about this partner. We leave that to the vendor to come up with the verbiage that you want to describe yourself. You know yourself best. And this is another way of promotion and marketing you. You provide that to your contract manager, and a contract manager will be assigned to you when you get awarded. You say, this is how I want it to say. This is what I want to include. And it doesn't have to be quite that short. We have some that are lengthier, but it gives you another way. Like I said, when people shop worldwide, they might say, I'm looking for nuts and bolts, or I'm looking for a specific refrigerator replacement part. So the name refrigerator comes up, and then all our contractors that might have a refrigerator, it's going to show up and it's going to drive them to your landing page within the Choice website. So you want to make sure that stays very current and it works to show them. And you can see how it also shows the approved product or service and how to place an order with pricing. So these are very important items. If people have to shop with a minority vendor, we show that as well. So this is a lot of good information up front that allows them to say, okay, I'm going to open the door and start interfacing with this vendor because they have a lot of the criteria I need. Next slide. Now, I did tell you there was a button on the vendor dashboard called Marketing Resources. And this is where we get down to the nitty-gritty with you, offering as much support and service in working with governmental entities. So we have my phone number right here, so you can go to that right away. You don't have to look it up. What we do like to explain to those of you that might be new in Texas, are new to working with educational governmental entities, Texas, by the Texas Education Association, has been split into 20 regions. And so if you click on this link here, it shows you the regional map where it says ESC region map in blue. And that just kind of gives you an idea of where they're located and what they work with. You also see another link that shows you tips that we've created for marketing to governmental entities. And here is another place where you can either pick up a list of the members or a list of the vendors. You can do it in multiple places, but we try and make it one-stop shopping for you. Next slide. Now, one of the things we offer to our vendors who have been with us for a while and have had at least 3 or more projects with our members, and usually we like it to be different members, not 3 projects with 1 member. But if you've had completed projects that were done well and to the satisfaction of the customer, then you can request through your contract manager to become a featured vendor. And where we're going to feature you is in our monthly newsletter called Leader's Choice. So you can see the requirements here to be a featured vendor. You have to have been with 3 or more members of different entity, and they must be willing to be interviewed. I try and get some feedback from them and figure out what's going on. How they like their project being gone through your contract, or how well you work, or what the outcome was. So when you go to your contract manager, they have some requirements that you have to do to be able to be a featured vendor. One is you have to have the CP seal, which is, Monique, can you show them right here in the upper left-hand corner? That is our CP seal right there. And then you have to have that seal linked back to your landing page within our website. You don't want to just link back to our main homepage. You want to go straight to your landing page so you get the direct business. And then the third thing is you have to provide your marketing collateral that you want me to review to make sure you're using the correct verbiage and represent choice partners in the right light. Now, we don't tell you how to market your product or service. You write that own verbiage, you bring your own pictures, but I just review it to be sure that you're not calling yourself a member, you are a vendor. Make sure that you have some information in there about choice itself. Then we have the article, and this is posted on our website. It's also emailed to our, I think we're over 3,000 plus members, and to our other vendors. And so you get spread out. And again, it's on the World Wide Web. So everybody's going to have access to how well you did and how you served our other members, and it can generate business for you there. Next slide. Now, to be able to do some marketing, if you just want to do your own flyer, not necessarily be a featured vendor, and you're going to start this way, it's a great place to start. I told you to start with your existing customers, but then you also might want to use the list of members that we have. To get a member contact list, the vendor has to do the 3 things that are the same for Leader's Choice article. You display the seal on your website, and you link that seal to your own landing page, then make sure you provide the marketing material. So client engagement, that's me, my division, will review the language and take care of it and give you any revisions that are needed. And then we can provide you with a list of our members, and we will use also or use a complete list that includes phone, email, and a home address, or I would say a business address. That way you can do any type of marketing. If you want to do snail mail, if you want to have flyers that you want to attach to an email and do an e-blast, or if you actually want to do a phone campaign. And I will say this, that if you do a phone campaign, I'd like to see your phone script, again, just to be sure you're using the correct verbiage, and otherwise just attach a copy of the e-blast or the flyer that you want to use. Next slide. Now, we want to share with you one of the tools our members have so that you'll know that you could be receiving some of these. As an awarded contract vendor, you will be listed on a monthly updated list of awarded contracts. So our members are going to get this every month. We send it out to them. They register for their own member login and can see the list. So they can go when they register and use their login to our Get a Quote system. And it'll allow them to pick a category that you see at the top on the right. So that category is going to match what's on our list of awarded contracts. Then they pick the desired vendors, because oftentimes we will have more than 1 or 2 awarded in a category. Then describe exactly what they're looking for. So if we had a member that was looking for a refrigerator for maybe their break room, they would select vendors that are under food equipment. They would describe exactly what kind of refrigerator and size they're looking for. Then they put in their contact information. But one of the other pieces of information they share is when they want that product in-house, not when they want the quote, but when they want it delivered. And so you can see that at the bottom left, when is this to come? That helps you as a vendor know how to quote, because if you have parts that are still stuck out on some of the cargo ships that haven't been unloaded yet, we have so many backlogs existing right now in stores for products and supplies that you can say, yes, I have this, but I can't meet your deadline. Are you willing to work? You can still reach out and converse with the vendor, the member, but you have to allow them to know, I can't meet your deadline. Now, the other thing the member can do is over in the bottom right hand, it allows them to upload things. They could upload specifications for the refrigerator. Or they could upload a picture of the cabinet that says the refrigerator has to fit in here. Just anything like that. Or if they were shopping for furniture, they can show you what type they got and what they want to match. All these things become more real to you when you get details. So that's why we added them, to help the vendor do a better quote. Now, in your contract, it will state, and please note that you must respond to this request for quote within 48 hours. The email that you're going to receive this request for quote is the email you registered with in eBid and the email that is the first email listed on your landing page. So if you just put it at info@ABC company, and that is not looked at regularly, or the person who used to look at it is on FMLA for 2 or 3 weeks, you could possibly miss a very warm lead, because usually a get a quote is a warm lead. They're definitely looking, they're interested. And it gives you a way to get an instant potential customer without having to go cold calling or knocking on doors. Next slide, please. Now, we want to share with you a way to train yourself and any of your sales representatives that go out. So on our website under About Us, we have some FAQs, frequently asked questions, that are going to answer a lot, because trying to absorb it all now from each of us as we talk can be overwhelming. We get that, but we have them here. So we're definitely here to answer if you want to reach out to us by phone or email, but we do have many here. So you can see, Monique, if you'll show them over on the left-hand side where it says About Choice Partners. If you click on that one, or the one just under it where it says All-in-One Cooperative, both of those have a lot of information that could address questions you might have after we're through here. And then definitely get in touch with us and we can show you where that is in a little bit. Next slide, please. This is where you can go to get us. Under About Us, you look at the bottom where it says Contact Us, and then over to the right, you get the screen that shows all our listing, and each person's name turns into an email, or you go to the right-hand side and it has our phone number. We're all available for you, and we have an 800 number that is listed too on that same contact page, and it's answered almost 24/7. So I just say that we are one of the most, how would you say, open door co-op available to both our vendors and members almost 24/7 and ready to help. Next slide. Now, there's just a few takeaways that I want to do, and that is to remind you to register, register, register. Even if we don't have something right now for the product or service you offer, it still puts you in the system to be considered. There might be some contract that we have that you didn't even know of. Your service or product could be applied to. You will get an e-invite if you're in the system, but not before. So register, register, and that again is just going to those 3 things I told you you can do when you say become a vendor, and hit the first one that's the link. Then watch for that e-invite. Watch that email carefully every day to see if there's an RFP. Then after you go through the RFP process, and if you're awarded, make sure you review the vendor dashboard. There's tons of information there, and dive deep into that market resource page. I think that'll be a great way for you to get the best benefit out of it. There's one other thing I wanted to share too, is this is one of the few co-ops that I know of, if not the only co-op, that not only offers member training, but we also offer vendor orientation. And so what you're hearing now, if you're an awarded vendor, you'll get an invite to come. Our next one is December the 9th, I believe, for the vendors. And we will go through a more detailed, in-depth review of what we offer, how to use our website, how to deal with our contract managers and the contracts themselves, and then just let you see the best ways to interact with our governmental entities. So we wish you the best in that. Thank you for your time.
All right, everyone. For those of you who missed our introduction and joined us after the fact, my name is Monique Joseph, and I am one of 4 contract managers here at Choice Partners that will now be discussing our electronic bidding system. So there's a couple of ways to get to our electronic bidding system. So one of the most common, you have our website. So you can go to choicepartners.org, and this would be your home screen. There's a red toolbar that goes across the screen, and so you will hover over the word vendors. When you hover, there's a drop-down menu, and at the bottom of that menu, there's a vendor login. So you will click that. Once you click the vendor login, this is the screen that will appear. Now, if you've already registered as a vendor and have a user profile already, then you can type in your credentials here, and it'll take you on to the next slide that I'll discuss. And if not, then you can set up a new account here and answer the questionnaire and just wait for the response after your information is reviewed. You'll then be provided your login credentials, so then you may utilize the website. If you're able to access the website because you already have your login credentials, or once you receive them and you log in, this is the slide that you will next see. So you will notice that there's a difference from this slide and the one that Janet just went over. The difference is the one that Janet just went over is if you are already a contract holder with Choice Partners. This is the one that you will see if you're not a contract holder with Choice Partners. On hers, there was a lot more icons on hers. I believe there were 6, and those 6 are detailed here. So it allows you to see your contract information page. It also gives you a contract list of members. It gives you the same icon for you to log into the eBid system, marketing resources, and the bond results. But because you're not considered an awarded contract holder at that time, the only thing you'll be able to access is the eBid system. So if you click this icon, it'll take you to our eBid system, which is this screen here. So I also mentioned that there's a second way that you can access the system. So instead of going through the Choice Partner website, you can save this web address here to your favorites. So it'll take you directly to this screen. So if you have your login credentials again, you can type in that information here and log in, or you can go to supplier registration and register your business. There are some toolbars here that you can click on, and you don't necessarily have to be logged in to see the information, but you can click here and it'll show you any current bids that we have out on the street for advertisement, any bids that have closed, awarded bids, non-awarded bids, active contracts, and then more information about Hcde cooperatives. So once you have been given access, you will now have to complete your user profile. So your company name and your phone number, generalized information. We're not asking for, any blood samples or anything like that, just generalized company information. So once you type in that information, you'll click next. Hcde cooperative has terms and conditions, So you will need to read through this information, and at the bottom of the screen, you will need to click this check mark that you agree with the terms and conditions to move forward to the next slide. So you hit next. Here's some more generalized information about your company, your trade name, legal name. You will notice on this page that there's some things that are highlighted with a red asterisk. So what that means is that information is required. If it doesn't have that information, it's not required, but we do ask that the more information that you provide us, the better. So if the information is there and you know it, please apply that information into these categories here, just so that we have more information about you as a vendor going forward. So after this is completed, you will hit save and go to next. That will bring you to the next page. You will then, after submitting, receive this email notification for you to continue your registration. Mind you, we get caught up. Sometimes we have meetings and things of that nature, so we're not able to do those tasks right then and there. So this link is good for 14 days, so you can come back to it tomorrow, the next day, but ensure that if it's not completed within 14 days, then that link will no longer work for you. So you would click that link to go on to the next pages for you to complete your registration. This would bring you now to your commodity code. So you might say, well, what is a commodity code? commodity code are identifiers that tell us what your business does, services, or what you sell. So you can click more than one of these selections, and there's drop-down categories when you hit the plus signs. So when you select these commodities, anytime that there's a bid solicitation that hits the street and it's advertised from Choice Partners, you will automatically get an email notification because you selected a particular category in that RFP solicitation, and you will be notified of it. Now, sometimes you select some of these commodities, and some of the bids that go out on the street are not necessarily 100% relative to your business. But I do urge you that any opportunity that does hit your inbox, that you please open it and that you review the scopes and the specs, because sometimes those opportunities are missed just because the title might not necessarily seem conducive to your business. But every time you get a notification, know that it was based upon the commodity selection that you chose in these categories. And again, you have the opportunity to view it. And if you select that you are not going to provide any information or submit your response to that bid, you can no bid that, and then you can just go on about your business. But then if you like to, you can open that bid opportunity and continue to move forward or applying. Next, you'll get to any of your special classifications. So if you're a business that is HUB certified, minority owned business, small business, women owned, you would select those classifications here. You can select more than one if need be, or one. And if none of them apply, then you can just select none of those classifications apply and then hit save and next. So after that's done, you've completed your user profile and you'll be brought back to the home screen. So now that you have your credentials and your user profile is set up, you can now log back into the system and apply for bid opportunities or search for opportunities, just in case you have not been notified. So when you log in, this will be your home screen. You will have a welcome letter that gives you a little bit more information about what some helpful tips that you can use to utilize this website. If you want to look for bid opportunities, you can go to bid events and search there for opportunities. So that's what I'm going to go on to in the next slide. If you have any alerts, so meaning if there was any invitations that were sent to you, there will be alerts or any pertinent information that would be here. And if you want to utilize your profile to see what you've chosen as far as your commodity selection, things of that nature, you can utilize these quick links to access that information. So here, we went to see what bid opportunities are available to us because we have not been notified any, and we registered, and it's been a year now, and we have not heard anything from Choice Partners. So now that I go and search, there's a whole list of potential CSPs or RFPs that are out on the street. So I'm looking, and oh, okay, this one right here applies to my business. This is a contract number here, so 21039MR. This tells you the organization who has submitted or put the solicitation out on the street for advertisement. Tells you the title of the particular RFP or CSP, what type of solicitation it is, the issue date, and then the close date and time. So these things here are very important because you might think that, oh, okay, well, I have a week or two or something like that. That time creeps up on us. So be mindful of that. So this is an opportunity as a vendor that I want to apply for. So I'm going to click it. Once I click it, it's going to take me to this page. This is now the screen that you will see after you click into the bid opportunity. The bid number is at the top, as well as the description of the solicitation. The close date and time is also noted here. This is a countdown. So this tells you exactly how much time you have left before this bid solicitation expires. After that, you will not be able to submit anything. So if it's 2:01 Central Time at PM, you can't say, well, the system locked me out or whatever. There's nothing that we can do at that point. So make sure that you're ahead of the time instead of behind, because you won't be able to submit your response. Your response status. This also says, okay, where am I in the process? I might have started working on it and didn't finish. So this will tell me that it's not submitted. Now, if I've gone through all of the steps and provided all of the information that was required of me, and I submitted my response, this will then turn green and say submitted, okay? Being mindful that when you are submitting your information, up until the deadline, you have the opportunity to retract it and finish or add or do whatever you need to do and resubmit it if need to. But just ensure that if you're submitting, that you get that green submit here. Down below is more bid information, issue date, close date, There's also a question cutoff date with every RFP. So in the event that you need to ask questions, which we'll get to on the next slide, this is the date and the time in which you have to do so. Off to the right-hand side here is the contract manager, their location and contact information should you need them. The next thing we're going to do is talk about these different individual tabs here. So questions is the next tab. In the event that you have questions, there's two opportunities for you to ask questions. The initial one is at the pre-proposal meeting. If you are not able to attend the pre-proposal meeting or anybody from your organization, that's perfectly fine. There's an opportunity for you to ask questions in the bid itself. So there's a plus sign here where you can ask a question. Type in your question, and we ask that you give us about 24 hours in order for you to have a response. This is a nice tool as well because it also gives you the opportunity to see any other questions that any other vendors had asked, and their answers to those questions would be in there as well. So again, proposal meeting is a great place to be for you to hear those other questions and ask questions yourself. But in the event that that time has passed, you can ask those questions here in this tab. Remember, hit the plus sign and add your question in and submit. Give us 24 hours and you should have a response to your question. Now we're going to go over to the next tab where you see activities. So activity is just a schedule of events. It tells you what days things are happening and the time. So this bid particularly went out for advertisement on 3/12/21 at 9 a.m. And then so on and so forth. 3:15 at 9 a.m. The second advertisement went out. Here you go about the pre-proposal meeting. So if you plan to be there, here's the information that you need. Since COVID has happened, we've been doing virtual pre-proposal meetings, and going forward, we're not necessarily know how we're going to conduct that, but for right now, we've had the same kind of setup with Zoom meetings. So if you click into the activity name, it'll give you all the Zoom information that you need. The same here, if there's any particular training that's attached to the bid solicitation, it'll give you all the information here, and if there's a Zoom, the information will be located there as well. Close date and time is also here. And then the anticipated board date. So, you know, everybody always wants to know, well, when are we going to be notified of, you know, the opportunity, when we're going to find out if we're awarded or not. The anticipated board award date is the date that you will find out if you have been selected as an awarded CP vendor. Now I'm going to go over to the attachments tab. In the attachments tab, you'll see a lot of different documents in here, some that you will need to download and complete in its entirety, and some are just reference material. So for this particular CP, there's a reference material in here for this lump sum estimate example. So this particular RFP is going to require you to provide a lump sum estimate example. So some people that are applying might not necessarily know what that means or what it looks like. So we're providing them that example in this case. The next is the section 10. So you will need to download that document, complete it in its entirety, and you'll have to re-upload that. And I'll show you exactly where you have to re-upload that document here a little bit. The next attachment here is the CP member list. And that member list we give you, so when you're applying for a bid opportunity, we ask that you provide references. So this is a good tool to utilize if you've used or done business with government entities in the past. You can use that list to see who is on that list and then utilize them to provide that reference. And then the actual contract itself, you can review the scope and specs here in this attachment. Next, you have the attributes. And the attributes is just questionnaires that we actually do electronic. So it works the same way. If there's asterisks next to them, we ask that you provide that information because it's required. And if there's no asterisk next to it, we still ask that you provide the information, but you're not required to. So you'll go through and it just depends. It'll tell you how many pages. So you might finish the first page and think, oh, I'm done, I can move on to the next tab. No, if you notice here, there's one of 3 pages. So as soon as you're done, or if you're working in the middle of it, save and go to next, or just save if you're continuing to work through this document, and you can come back to it as you need be. The next one is line items. So line items typically has to do with pricing. So for this example, this is a CSP, so we're working with construction here. So we're asking for pricing, meaning a coefficient to be provided. Same here, electronically, if there is asterisks there, we need you to provide that information. And then if not, then you don't necessarily have to provide that. If there's more information that you want to provide to us regarding the coefficients or the pricing, or sometimes we ask for catalog off discount and there's a range, you can provide notes so we know exactly what you're trying to state in those comments. If you want to no bid a situation or a line item, you can no bid them if the opportunity provides itself there. Okay, and you hit save and you go to the next one. The last part is, or the second to the last, excuse me, is the response attachment. So just a second ago, I just went over the attachments tab, and you had documents that you had to download, fill out in its entirety, and re-upload. So that's where you'll put those documents here. The second part of this requested attachments is in the RFP or CSP, there is a section 3 of the terms and conditions that are in that particular document. And it will list out in its entirety all the documents that we require for you to submit to your bid solicitation. So that being said, your form 1295 is one of them, insurance coverage, and so on and so forth. So we ask that you provide all the required documentation that's asked of you in that CSP or RFP. We ask that you upload those documents here. Same applies if there's an asterisk, it's required, not required, but please, if you can, supply that information. The more information, the better. So then once you've done uploading everything that you need to, you'll go now to the response submission. If you have any notes to us that you want to let us know, you can put those notes here and save them. And whoever is submitting this information on your company's behalf, you will put your first and last name here, as well as your email, and you'll hit submit your response. Now, we're all good, right? We think everything is done. Then we get to this part. We have errors. What happened? What did we not do? So this tells you that you did not submit it. And why? Because you have errors. The great thing about this system is that it'll tell you exactly where you messed up or where you left off. So you can go back to these particular areas, fix them, and then resubmit that information. The second piece of it is that it will also provide you an email form, the same exact information. Your response was not submitted due to XYZ, and it'll detail everything that you need to do to go back and fix. Once you fix them again, resubmit, and then this should go away and it should be green as long as you filled out everything and completed everything that needed to be required. Okay. Now I'm going to turn this presentation over to Stephen Kendrick, who is my guru of job order contracting, and he will discuss all the details you need to for that.
All right, good morning, everyone. As Monique said, my name is Stephen Kendrick. I'm the Senior Manager of Facilities Planning here at Hcde. I wish I could ask y'all how many of y'all are actually in construction or trade services. I guess I see at least one. But basically, we're going to cover what you need to know to even be able to get a job order contract with a co-op. It's all based on state law and requirements. It's not specific to choice partners. And if you're a trade, such as roofing, HVAC, plumbing, this applies to you as well, okay? It's not just for general contractors. Well, I need. Okay. There we go. So I'm going to kind of go over why job order contracting as opposed to other contracting delivery methods, maintenance versus construction, and why that's important. The concepts surrounding trade jock versus regular jock, and quoting versus bidding, and then how to legally use a job order contract. So why does legal compliance matter? And the biggest thing for you to understand is different procurement rules apply. So under maintenance, and please understand, maintenance is basically how OSHA and case law have determined maintenance. It's not what we would typically think of as maintenance. But it doesn't require things like prevailing wages or bonding or liquidated damages. In construction type contracts, all those things are required, right? So different procurement rules apply, and contracts not properly procured can be voided or unenforceable. Other things, as I said, it triggers additional requirements. These legal mistakes can delay your projects, jeopardize budgets, result in cost overruns, and subject the governmental entity, which is your client, to financial liability to vendors and subcontractors. So why job order contracting? And here's the deal, especially if you're a trade contractor, we like to live in time and materials in our quotes. We have our own pricing. But the deal is if we're providing construction services, job order contracting is the only IDIQ delivery method legally available. And so what IDIQ is it's indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity. And basically what that means is at the time the contract is being advertised, it's the only delivery method that does not require a scope of work at the time of advertisement. So it's basically your on-call contract. You're procuring pricing today for all of those future specific scopes of work that you don't know are going to happen, or at least for client. Okay, there's no scope of work at the time this job is being, this contract's being bid on by you. We don't know which governmental entities will use you, how much they will use you. We can simply guesstimate a dollar value based on previous contract activity. But it's IDIQ, right? So they call you out, they tell you their scope of work, you quote the project, they issue a PO, and you go to work, and that's it. They don't have to advertise it on the street. They don't have to go low bid. They can go directly with you after you issue them a proposal. So what is Jock job order contracting? And the legal definition is a procurement method used for maintenance. So it includes maintenance, repair, alteration, renovation, remediation, or minor construction, right? So this is not a new school or a new facility. When the work is of a reoccurring nature, but the delivery times, types, and quantities of work are indefinite, right? So that means we know possibly that we're going to need to have these types of projects done, but we don't know when we're going to have them done, and we don't know how much of it we're going to have done. Perfect example is roofing. I may know that I'm going to have roofing projects this year, but I may not know exactly how many I'm going to have coming up. I don't necessarily know if a storm's going to come through and blow off half a roof, things like that. So factors to consider, okay? First off, notice on this PowerPoint that the job order contract covers repair and maintenance. But the maintenance contract, that's your time and materials contract. So if you already have a cooperative contract and it's time and materials, it cannot be used for construction services. It can only be used for maintenance. But the Jock contract covers both, okay? Factors to consider, and these are straight from OSHA, okay? These are not choice partners interpretations. This is what the law goes by. Typically, even if something's taken to court, this is what they go by to determine if it was maintenance or construction. Like for like, and they define that as not new or upgraded. So if you have a 300-ton chiller, let's say a 300-ton train chiller, and you're replacing it with a new 300-ton train chiller, it's not like for like. First off, it is new. You're not maintaining the existing chiller. You're replacing it with a new one, okay? And it's upgraded for a couple of reasons. First off is the efficiencies that we have today are not the same as they were back then. It has new technology controls running it. You have to bring up everything to code. You got to do a test and balance. There is a commissioning aspect to it. It's over $8,000. It's mechanical in nature, so legally, the governmental entity is required to get an engineer on this, right? It's over $25,000, so the governmental entity is required to get a payment bond. It's over $100,000, they're required to get a performance bond. And now you can see just in that one example, why replacing a chiller with what most people would consider like for like is not actually like for like and should be procured as construction. Scale and complexity of the project is this, if I'm painting one wall in a classroom, the scale is small, the complexity is small. Now I'm going to take painting, but I'm going to apply it to a bridge, okay? The scale of that project's much greater. The complexity of that project is much greater. That would be considered construction. And the physical size of the object being worked on. So if I've got a 10 by 10 shed that I'm keeping lawn equipment in, and I replace half of that roof, again, with the exact same roof, let's say it's shingles, it's like for like, scale and complexity are low, and the physical size of the object being worked on is small. I take that exact same example, but now I apply it to a 500,000 square foot college building or campus, right? The physical size of the object being worked on is now much greater. The scale and the complexity of the project are also much greater. You have curbs you have to mop in, you have vents and penetrations that you're dealing with. Even though that roof may be like for like, it may be the exact same roofing system, the scale and complexity is much greater, the physical size is much greater, and because the dollar value of that project likely exceeds $20,000, they're required to go back and get it re-engineered, okay? So that falls under construction. And please, if you have any questions, type them in. Joanne can respond to them, or she can read them aloud and I'll respond to it. But please understand, if you're adding anything to an additional system, that's also construction. LED lighting, if they didn't have LED lights before and you're upgrading to LED lighting, that project is a construction project. If you're adding fire alarms or detection systems, maybe to modular buildings, it wasn't there previously. They added that modular building. You're adding additional hardware to that space. It's construction. All right, so I won't go over all of this, but Jock's procured by purchasing cooperatives, and this is all cooperatives, whether it's Choice or anyone else. The governmental entity, so your client, can select you, the vendor, without having to do their own competitive procurement process. They call everything a bid, okay? But they don't actually do the legal bid where they have to advertise it on the street for 2 consecutive weeks. They have to wait for the proposals for that bid to close. They have to evaluate it. They have to take it to their board. They don't have to do that anymore. They can reference the Choice Partners contract and quote the project. Basically what that means is they can get 1 quote from you, or they can get 3 quotes from 3 different vendors, but they don't have to do a formal solicitation bidding process. It only satisfies the procurement requirement, not the contracting requirement. So job order contracting specifically in state law requires a written and signed job order between the vendor and the governmental entity. And I've referenced that statute in this slide, so you can actually look it up and verify it. But basically the deal is once the governmental entity that you're working with has a scope of work, okay? Y'all need to develop that scope of work, determine if there's prevailing wages involved, determine if they're going to have liquidated damages, all of that, and that should be put in a job order, and both parties are required to sign it, and that's defined as a job order contract, okay? So it's not a verbal agreement, it's not a PO, it's not a proposal and a PO, and each one has 1 signature and we put them together. It is a single document with both party signatures on it, okay? I know that's probably not what many of you are accustomed to getting, But if it goes to court and anything about that contract is being protested, the judge has ruled in previous case law that it's not a formal contract under job order contracting, okay? This is the only construction method that allows for the use of co-op in lieu of self-procurement. So if it's design build, if it's construction manager at risk, if it's CM agent, those types of delivery methods cannot be procured through an interlocal agreement or a job order contract, okay? It is also the only method allowed to select contractors for future undefined construction projects. Okay, so what should be on the estimate, okay? And this is important for you. If you're going to respond to a job order contract, Choice Partners currently has several trade job order contracts on the street and coming to the street. So that means they're probably going to be advertised in the next few weeks. But I believe they have a mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. I think there's a roofing and waterproofing. There's a signage, and I want to say that there's another one. I'm drawing a blank on it. But when they're evaluating you, these are some things they're going to look for. They're going to ask you to give them an example estimate, and I'll show you what it looks like here in a later slide. Okay, but we're going to see if you know how to do a line item assessment based on the unit price books we named in our contracts. We're going to check to see if you know how to correctly apply the city cost index. Do you understand what a coefficient is and how to legally bid that and apply that? And then also understand that all subcontractor pricing must also be estimated using the unit price book we named. So you can't just take all of your subcontractors' quotes and mark up your overhead and profit and then put it in the line item. That's not how this works, okay? So here's an example of what the estimate looks like. And this is an example of what we would be looking for if you responded to one of our contracts. And many co-ops actually ask for something similar to this now. But you're either going to need one of the 4 unit price books that we named, or you're going to need a trial version of it. You're going to go in and you're going to add line items, okay? And so we're looking at the quantities, the line item number, is it there? The description. Anything not in that description is another line item, okay? The unit of measure. And then Choice Partners, for our means specifically, specifies total OMP column pricing, okay? So if you're using our means, we expect to see that extended total or total OMP and extended total OMP. If you're using Craftsman or Xactimate or one of those others, there is no OMP column, so we would expect the total column. Please understand that the coefficients will be different that you bid depending on if the unit price includes overhead and profit in their pricing or not. So let me explain a coefficient real quick. It's a multiplier. It's basically the opposite of a percent off. So if I bid a 0.90 coefficient, I'm basically saying I'm going to give my client 10% off the unit price book. Okay. If I bid a 1.10, I'm basically going to increase my pricing by 10%. So ours means where overhead and profit is already included, those coefficients should always be lower than a 1.0 because overhead and profit's already in there. In the other 3 price books where overhead and profit is not included, you're likely going to want to bid over a 1.0 to account for that overhead and profit. So if you're doing 10 and 10, then you would bid a 1.20. Okay, that's how a coefficient works. And that's the only pricing you legally bid at the time you respond to a contract. We're going to look at the data release and see if it's the most current. This one right here is 2019 Q2, so obviously it's not most current. We do understand, however, if you are using a trial version, they're not going to allow you to use the most recent data release. We are aware of that. We do account for that, but we still want to see that you know how to apply it. The city cost index location, okay? It's based on the first 3 digits of the zip code. So this isn't a great example, but 775 is Galveston, okay? But there's other towns with 775, such as LaPorte and Beaumont. All that we care of is that those first 3 digits match the location of the project. We're not as focused on the city, okay? And then note, I will go over that in more depth if you're awarded a contract and when to use that and how to use that. Once you create that estimate, it's going to give you a subtotal down at the bottom. Okay. After that subtotal, you're going to apply your coefficient, which is your discount or increase to the price book. Understand that job order contracting is a not to exceed number. So you can always give an additional discount, but you don't have to, okay? Then you'll want to add in any pass-through costs. So bonding, permitting, okay? And here's the deal. You want to apply them after the coefficient because you don't want them to be discounted by the coefficient, right? If you're charging them the cost of what you paid for that permit and you bid a 0.90, you don't want to reduce it by 10%. So you do it after the coefficient. Any questions on that? If so, type them into the comments. Okay, so review the Jock quote. This is something that we tell our members. This is something that choice partners will do if a member requests it. This is also the same things we look at when we're evaluating you for a potential contract. So city cost index, if you used it or not, and did you use it correctly? Did you apply the correct coefficient? Overhead and profit pricing column. And really it's just, that specific to ours means it'll just be the total column if it's one of the other price books. The data release, is it the most recent? So we can tell if you're using a demo version of the software or a regular version. If you're using a demo, use the most current that they allow. If you have RSMeans already, then you need to use the most current release. Non-pre-priced items, our contracts do allow that. It's in section 6 of our contract, and it tells you exactly what you have to do to be able to use those. So basically, if you're using your own pricing and you're not using line out of the price book, there's additional criteria in our contract that you have to follow. Attempts to pass through the cooperative fee. Here's the deal. When you calculate that coefficient, it should already include the cooperative fee in it. It should include all overhead line items. You need to go to section 1 of our contract, look up the definition of coefficient and look what's included in it, okay? If it's listed in the definition of coefficient, then you cannot use an additional line item for it in your estimate, okay? Cooperative fee is one of those line items. So if you would normally bid a 0.84, and let's say for easy math that the cooperative fee is 2%, then you should bid a 0.86, okay? Use of division 1. As I said before, that's your overhead line items. Some of those are already included in the definition of coefficient. If they are, they cannot be used. And we'll check to see if you know what is and isn't included in that coefficient, and if you understand that. And then we're going to look at adjustment factors. That's basically where it increases or decreases line items based on working conditions, such as working in a confined space. Okay. So our win-win-win, and I know Monique kind of covered this, but not from a job order contracting view, okay? So that you understand, Choice Partners is a governmental entity. They're actually Harris County Department of Education. Choice Partners is simply the name of our department, okay? So you got a technology department, you have a maintenance department, you have a Choice Partners department, okay? The law allows us to sign an interlocal agreement with other governmental entities to share each other's legally procured contracts, okay? All CP members have already signed this interlocal. If you're wanting to work with someone who's not a member, they just have to go onto the website, download the interlocal, sign it, and then it depends on their policy, whether or not it has to go to their board. But once it's the interlocal is executed upon first signature. So what that means is once they execute the contract on their end, they still have to send it to us and we're going to have to execute it on our end, but they can start working with you the moment they sign it. Okay. They don't have to wait on us to sign it. Then what Choice Partners does is they find out what contracts either Harris County Department of Ed, our governmental entity, needs, or what our members need. And then we do those RFPs and CSPs and award the most qualified vendors. So we do typically RFPs and CSPs based on best value, not low bid. Please understand that pricing is still heavily weighted and considered, but it's not the determining factor. We take in a bunch of other evaluation criteria into consideration when determining if you're qualified and provide best value. Once that happens, the CP member can work directly with you, okay? They don't have to come to us and say, hey, I need to get a quote from XYZ vendor. They can call you direct. They give you a job order, you give them a proposal, they issue a PO on that, execute the job order with both parties' signatures, and you can immediately go to work. The biggest difference here is that the cooperative contract is not the contract by and between you and them that's project specific, okay? So when Choice Partners does their contract, they don't know which governmental entities are going to use them. They don't know those governmental entities' prevailing wages. They don't know what their insurance requirements are. They don't know if they're going to have liquidated damages. Those things need to be in a supplemental contract between you and them. Okay, that's something, if you read our contract, that you're supposed to negotiate with them prior to executing the PO and going to work. We recommend the use of a master job order contract or a master services agreement. Basically, it has that governmental entity's terms and conditions. Anything additional that the cooperative contract doesn't cover that's specific to them, it should be in that agreement. Typically, it would have two attachments. The job order itself, which they fill out once they have a specific scope of work, and then their prevailing wage rates, okay? So they have to tell you the prevailing wage rates for you to be able to know what you need to pay. Liquidated damages, retainage, terms and conditions specific to them, and signed by both you and them, okay? I run a job order contract. I have the master job order contract, and I make all my vendors sign it at the first of each year, okay? Then what I do is I issue the job orders under it. So I give my prevailing wages at the start of every year. I give my terms and conditions, all of that on the front end. So we have all that paperwork signed and agreed upon prior to me needing to use them. Okay. The job order should be issued by the governmental entity, signed by both parties, states the specific scope of work, and provides those prevailing wages. Public works bonds. These are requirements for governmental entities to get bonds. Please understand, if they don't tell you that they want a bond, you are still required to provide it per your contract, really with any cooperative. Every cooperative contract I've seen lists the dollar values as to when you're required to provide that bond, okay? So you need to be aware of these, even if they didn't specify it. Performance bond is required if the contract's in excess of $100,000, okay? Payment bond. This depends on the type of governmental entity you're working with as to which dollar threshold kicks in. But $25,000 is for all governmental entities that are not a municipality or joint board, okay? Municipalities and joint boards are at 50,000. Okay, this is the legal requirement for when governmental entities should get an engineer or an architect. I can tell you that you're going to see many projects exceeding these dollar values that aren't engineered, okay? It is the owner's responsibility to do that. It's not yours. You cannot provide those services legally under any cooperative contract, okay? That starts to go under, design build, which is not a legal procurement method using an interlocal agreement. So the governmental entity must independently hire architectural and engineering services. They can't get them through you, and that's per Texas Government Code 791, okay? Architecture required for an alteration or addition, and that's really what job order contracting is for. It's not a new building. When the construction costs exceed $50,000, okay? Engineering is written kind of, it's in the opposite. So it basically says when an engineer is not required, okay? So basically engineering is required for all construction projects unless it's electrical or mechanical and under $8,000. So if it's over $8,000, it should, and it's mechanical or electrical in nature, it should have been engineered. If it's not mechanical or electrical, so it's structural, it's civil, whatever. If it's under 20,000, they don't have to get an engineer. If it's over 20,000, legally they're supposed to get an engineer. Please understand though, civil engineering, or not engineering, civil projects are excluded from job order contracting. Okay, so in the statute 2269.402, it states the exclusions to job order contracting and drainage projects, roadways, freeways, taxiways, wharfs, all of those are excluded. Okay, I'm sure there's others that I've forgotten, but it's not for civil engineering projects. So what must go to the board? When you're working with a governmental entity, they should take the construction delivery method to their board for approval. And so remember how I said I make them sign that master service agreement at the beginning of each fiscal year? What I do is looking at my budgets, I determine how much of each type of construction service I'm going to need for the year. I go find those contractors on Choice Partners. I pull their contract number. I list a not to exceed amount based on my previous year's budget. I bring it to my board at the first of the year. That way, when I have an emergency or an unexpected project come up and I need to issue a job order, I've already got the delivery method approved. Okay, super important. The members are not supposed to just go to our website, grab you with the contract, and start using you before they get that delivery method approved by their board. Job orders, whether it's through a co-op or it's directly with your client, either one, if that purchase order is in excess of $500,000, it has to go back to the board for approval. Okay, and many governmental entities have actually adopted a lower threshold. Where I'm at, if it's in excess of $100,000, we have to take it back to our board. So trade jock versus jock, okay? Jock is what everyone thinks about when they hear the term jock. That's your general contractor. They're allowed to do any and all divisions within that price book, okay? A trade jock is restricted to specific divisions in the price book. So you can't just use anything and everything. So if it's a plumbing jock, you can only use division 22 plumbing. You can't go jump into painting and sheetrock and electrical. Make sense? The benefit to the trade jock is it reduces the overhead to your client. They're not having to pay that general contractor to manage multiple trades. Okay, and so it reduces their expenses and your expenses. The issue is if you're under a trade job and you start a project and then you identify an unforeseen condition that's not covered under your contract, they would have to stop the job, take care of that unforeseen condition, and then resume it. Okay, so if you opened up a wall and found asbestos, but you weren't awarded anything for asbestos, then they would have to stop the job, go use a contract for that remediation project. And then once it's remediated, then you would have to come back and resume it. Okay. A bid versus a proposal, and I already hit this earlier, but I'll cover it again. Okay. The bid is what Choice Partners is doing, or what they've advertised on the street. It's a formal, written, sealed response that satisfies the state's procurement requirements for a governmental entity. Okay. A quote, when you're dealing with your clients, they're going to call these bids too. They're not, they're quotes. And that's your job specific price in writing based on what you bid. Okay, so it's based on that unit price book and your coefficient. Got it? And that's a scope specific quote. The governmental entity has to get at least one quote, but the state of Texas does not restrict them to only one quote. So they can get 3 quotes, they can get 10 quotes. I find as a rule of thumb, 1 to 3 is best. If they're using federal funds, I always recommend 3. If they have dollar thresholds internally where their board requires them to get 3, then they should get 3. But if it's a small project and there is no requirements, it's perfectly fine to run with 1 quote. So some final thoughts. And please understand, these are not specific to Choice Partners either. But as a vendor, you need to establish that procurement method up front with your governmental entity. The deal here is, if they ask you to get them a quote and you don't know what contract you're using, you have no way of providing them the legally bid pricing. Then what happens? Then they come back to you and say, oh, well, you're not on a contract with us, so we need to put you on Choice Partners. And you say, okay, we'll throw 2% fee onto that to cover my Choice Partners fee. That's not what you legally bid. You bid a unit price book with coefficient. You're gonna have to go back and re-estimate that whole project using that unit price book with that legally bid coefficient. It's time consuming, it's a headache, it's easiest just to establish that procurement method up front. The other thing is, and again, this is all cooperatives, this isn't Choice, but if they issue you a PO with a cooperative number on it, and you accept that PO and go to work, whether or not you realize that cooperative contract number is on there, the co-ops will come back to you for that fee. Does that make sense? So it doesn't matter if it's Choice Partners, TIPS, buy board. If the member issues a PO with their contract number on it and they send it to that cooperative and you accepted it and went to work, you're on the hook for the fee. So that's another reason why it's super important to establish that up front, so you don't get blindsided later. Include the contract number on the quote or PO. When you're in construction, you're almost, always going to hit that $50,000 threshold in a year. The governmental entity, it's not per vendor, it's not per project, it's in the aggregate, right? So 50,000 for all vendors providing the same service in that fiscal year. So what that means is you should always have a contract number on every quote you provide, okay? Very rarely will you ever truly have a construction project that should not require a contract. Verify pricing by, we tell our members to verify the pricing by requesting your line item estimate with legally bid coefficient. If you only give them lump sum proposals, there is no way for Choice or them to verify that they got the pricing you bid. You have to provide that line item estimate with your legally bid coefficient so they can verify that contract pricing. You should send confirming copies of the POs to the cooperative. Not all coefficients are created equal. And this is super important for you to understand when you're bidding coefficients with Choice Partners or any other cooperative. You need to know what's in that coefficient definition, so you know if you need to increase or decrease your coefficient. You also need to know if their pricing includes overhead and profit or not. Okay, so Choice Partners RS means includes overhead and profit. So that might be a 0.84, but Choice Partners Craftsman Construction Cost Estimator, which doesn't have over and profit, might be a 1.2. Okay, one coefficient isn't necessarily any better than the other. If there's a member looking, they're going 0.84, 1.2, you know, what's included in that coefficient? Because that 0.84 or 1.2 doesn't actually determine the cost of the project when comparing coefficients. They need to compare what's in the coefficient to truly get an apples to apples comparison. You need to be aware of what's in those coefficients so you can truly bid a good number that covers your cost, that allows you to make fair, reasonable overhead and profit, but allows you to still be competitive. Not all cooperatives are equal, okay? One of the big questions we get from vendors is what sets Choice Partners apart. First thing is, we are a governmental entity. We use all of these contracts in-house, okay? We use a lot of federal dollars through our Head Start programs. So all of our contracts are federally compliant. So uniform guidance, 2 CFR 200, EDGAR, whatever the entity's calling it, it's all the same. But we do follow that. We are in the state of Texas. So what that means is governmental entities do not have to use a co-op in the state of Texas, but cooperative contract still has to follow Texas law, okay? If the lead agency and another cooperative is outside of the state of Texas, their contract likely does not follow state law. And we only see that audited when there's a problem. So a subcontractor or a supplier doesn't get paid. It's a federal grant that's being audited. Then they go and look into that, and that's where we see funds getting deobligated. Deobligated is basically where the federal grant comes back and takes the dollars back from your client because the cooperative contract they used didn't follow federal, state, and local laws. Okay. So not all co-ops are created equal. It's super important that you're providing a contracting method to them that meets their requirements depending on their funding source. So if they're using federal funds, you want to make sure you're using a cooperative contract that covers federal funds. Okay. Foregoing presentation was created by Harris County Department of Education. It's intended to be used solely for general information purposes and is not regarded as legal advice. I'm going to tell you, the client that you're working with, the governmental entity, should always consult their own legal advice if that's what they're seeking. Same with you. If you need to legal advice, you should always refer to your own attorneys. With that being said, I'm going to open it up for questions and answers for anything we've presented today. And I'm going to turn it back over to Monique.
All right, so if anybody has any questions, feel free to unmute yourselves and ask those questions, or if you feel more comfortable typing those questions into the chat box, you can continue to do so while we're still online. And Joanne, again, is on in the background answering those questions as we go along. So either way is perfectly fine. I'll take a little pause here so you can unmute if you need to ask any questions should you feel free.
Hi, my name is Nicole, and I had 2 questions. Is there a way to access this presentation after this webinar, just to be able to get all the facts, all these great facts that have been presented? That's the first question. And then the second question is, I probably missed it. Is there a fee to join the co-op? I didn't hear there was a fee for a customer to join, but I didn't know if there was something. It looked like there was a coefficient that we needed to add. I just didn't catch that part completely.
Yes, so to understand, when you register to be able to bid on our contracts, there's no fee. When we evaluate you, if we award you a contract, there's no fee at that time either. The only time there's a fee is when a member has issued you a PO in reference to our contract, okay? And this is true of all cooperatives. You'll have to go into, for choice partners, you'll have to go into section 5. I don't remember, Joanne, is it 5.30 or?
Yeah.
Somewhere in the middle of 5, I think 5.30, and it'll list the fee for that contract. There's different fees associated with different contracts. So if it's a food contract, most of those are at 1%. If it's commodity, most of those are at 2. Jock, trade Jock, I think is also at 2, and full-blown Jock, I believe, is at 3. But it's 3% for pre-priced line items and 2% for non-pre-priced. So the fee varies depending on the contract, and so that's just contract specific. But yes, your pricing, whether it's commodity pricing, coefficient pricing, it doesn't matter. And this is true of all cooperatives, not just choice. You should always have that fee included in your pricing when you provide it. There's not a cooperative out there that I'm aware of that allows you to add that fee on top of the pricing you bid, okay? Unless that was just negotiated as an exception to that contract that they accepted on a one-on-one basis, but I don't know of any cooperative contract that's written that way.
Thank you.
And then the second question she had was this presentation going to be available in torrents? I don't know if you have a way, I know you have the presentation at your fingertips, if you're going to send this out to the attendees so that they have access to it.
Monique, I put that answer in there. I sent it to Torrance this morning.
Okay.
Torrance, are you there? I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
Yes, I'm here, and I will be sending it after this presentation, after this webinar.
And just to add, I have recorded it also, so I will have it under About Us, under presentations on the Choice Partners website also.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have any questions that they want to unmute and discuss with us before we move on to closing? Okay. So the next slide that I'm going to go over is just that Choice Partners, we're looking forward to working with any and all of you. I know this was a lot of information. I know everybody knows what to do at this point, right? But no, I mean, it's a lot of information that we've given to you in so little time. And so everyone at Choice Partners is readily available to answer any questions and help you out with anything that you may need. So in the event that you have questions beyond this presentation, I'm going to go over the next couple of slides that'll give you all the contact information to reach us. But our main goal and objective is to help us all win. We all want to win in all categories. We want to help our members by providing them quality contracts that they can use, as well as quality vendors that they can utilize to do their business on a daily basis. We also want to help our vendors by providing them a customer base that they didn't have access to before, to help generate increased revenue. And then lastly, we also want to help ourselves by helping you all. So in the event that all these stars align, if you will, then the admin fee that comes from the cost of doing business with you all helps us recycle those funds into our community-based programs to help further our community initiatives that Hcde stands by. The presenters, I'm going to go over one last time, just so if you missed it when I did the introduction earlier this morning. Myself, I'm a contract manager here at Choice Partners. I've been here for about 3 years now, and I handle a lot of the Jock contracts. Joanne Nichols, who has been helping us in the background with a lot of the questions that have been in the chat box. She's our assistant director here at Choice Partners. You have Stephen Kendrick, who, again, I always refer to him as my Jock guru. He is our senior manager, of facility planning. Steve Gibson, who is also another contract manager here who deals with a lot of commodities. And then you have Janet Wash, who is our assistant director of client engagement, who helps with everything marketing related. Here's a way to contact us. So earlier in the slides, I know Janet mentioned that you can go to the Choice Partner website, go to About Us, and at the bottom of that drop down, there is a contact form where it lists all of these other email addresses and phone numbers. But we just wanted to give you a snapshot here of who is our team. So our CP management team, you have Jeff, who is our senior director here at Choice Partners. He could not be here with us today, but he is our senior director here. Joanne, who I previously mentioned, is our assistant director at Choice. You have Trisha, who is our assistant director over our food child nutrition program. And then Stephen Kendrick, as I mentioned about him being our senior facilities manager. You have our contract managers, who are Christy and Steve, who typically deal with commodities. Laura, who is our contract manager for the food child nutrition program. And Michael, myself, who deal with Jock contracting. You have our contract compliance specialist, who is Mary, our billing staff, our leader, Jen and Kay. And then any questions that you have regarding reporting, there's 3 different reporting emails. So if it's facilities like job order contract and things of that nature, you can utilize that email address. For food and supplies, those email addresses are at your fingertips there. And then for any marketing related questions, you have Stephanie, who's the director of client engagement, and then Janet, who is on this call with us today, who's the assistant director of client engagement, that can also answer any questions that you may have regarding marketing. In the event that you have not committed all those phone numbers and all those email addresses by memory, you can get our information here and contact us. Our physical location, we're located at the 290 610 corridor, walking distance from the Northwest Mall, or used to be the Northwest Mall. Our address is 6005 Westview, Houston, Texas, 77055. We can be reached at either one of those telephone numbers, and our web address is choicepartners.org. In the event that you have some free time, please follow us on our social media channels, which is Twitter, and then we also have a LinkedIn account. And if you need to send us an email, you have our generalized email box, is the info@choicepartners.org, or we have our senior director's email on there, jeff@choicepartners.org. He's very attentive when it comes to looking over his email and responding efficiently and accurately. So in the event that you need some information, you can go to either one of those emails addressed and ask us any questions that you may need and be provided your answers. Well, unless anyone has any other questions or things that want to be addressed, or any comments and things of that nature, this will conclude our presentation for today. So I just want to thank not only just the individuals that attended today, but I also want to thank our presenters for taking the time out to give a lot of this information out to these prospective vendors. And we hope that we look forward to doing business with you in the near future. Does anyone else have any comments, questions?
Doesn't look like it.
No?
Thank you all. Thank
you.
you, Torrance, for hosting.
You guys have a great day.
Thank you for attending.